So beautiful people. I hope that you are doing well, that you and your families are remaining safe. I recognize this is still a very strange time for us as we kind of explore the best ways to support you in your education. So I do hope that these videos are helpful in some way, shape, or form. I'll make sure to include my contact information at the end of this video so that you have a way to kind of reach out to me if you need any additional support. Please know I may be a little slow to respond. I'm getting a lot of emails lately just because of my regular 9 to 5, but I will certainly do my best to answer your questions as they relate to English. Okay. So today we have on our agenda just to kind of talk about the beginning phases of understanding what symbolism and subtext is and how to interpret those things in a story. This is not going to be a really nitty gritty video. I think once we start to read the specific text that I have laid out, some of this will make more sense and we'll be able to dive in a little deeper. So there will be subsequent videos relating to symbolism, subtext, and interpretation. But today, we're just going to kind of practice learning about them and practice doing it just a little bit, just a small amount. All right. Are you kidding me? All right. So, first question, what the heck is symbolism? Why is it important? Is this really necessary for me to know? So, to answer that, what is symbolism? It is really a literary device that authors use to give more meaning to people, to things, to places, to make a story more interesting. They want to muster up those feelings and emotions from their readers because they have to make that experience more real, more tangible for those people who are reading a book versus watching a TV show or listening to something. So symbolism is used to kind of stir up our emotions, make us think a little bit more deeply about the text. Symbolism in a text, and I think that I covered this in our previous video, is when something tangible you can touch. Tangible means physical, right? You can touch something. When something tangible is meant to represent something that is intangible. So we talked about the idea of love in the previous video. Those hearts, a rose, are meant to be symbolic of love. So when you care about someone, love is not something that is tangible. It's an idea or a concept that we as human beings have. And those two things, a heart and a rose, are symbols of love. That's just a quick recap. All right. So again, we use them because authors really want to make readers think about the subtext, think about the story, think about how the characters are interacting with each other. Because when we read, we have to do a lot of the labor for ourselves. Labor meaning we have to envision the story. We have to think about what the characters look like. Even when we're giving a description, we have to think about what they sound like, the setting. Authors do a lot of work to kind of set the tone for us, but we gotta fill in the gaps. We can't expect to be spoon-fed that information the way we would if we were, say, watching a TV show. You know, they set the mood when we watch a show, the music, the lighting, the way that things kind of transition. Authors have to do all of that labor for us, and we just have to fill in the gaps a little bit. So one way that they help us to do that is by using symbolism. Now, what comes along with symbolism is usually subtext. And I love subtext because it makes me think about what things could mean and the kind of hidden meanings of certain things or the hidden agendas of certain characters gets really juicy. You could think of subtext. Well, first, let me give you the definition of subtext. That probably would be helpful, right? Yeah, okay. So we know that the prefix sub, S-U-B, means below, underneath, not on the surface. Okay, you following me here? So when you have subtext, you have information or text that is happening just below the actual story. It's kind of like having multiple storylines going on at once, and certain things that happen at point A impact what happens at point B, impacts what happens at point C. The way that I like to think about subtext, and I don't know if you have ever watched a show where you have like the main character, and they do something, and then like this sub character, this kind of no name person, was behind some bigger plot or scheme, and they were doing things that really seemed small or not important, but they became a bigger deal. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of how I think about subtext. Now, when you have subtext or when you have symbolism in a story, in a poem, in a piece of literature, chances are you're going to be doing a little bit of interpreting. And I also love to do this because I like to kind of figure out what the real message is. So when you interpret something, you're really drawing conclusions about what the subtext or the symbolism means. And to do this, you want to have to read the story. It's kind of a given, right? You need to know what happens, what's going on, how certain characters interact with each other, the types of things that they typically do or don't do in order to make an accurate interpretation or a fairly accurate interpretation based on the text. You may notice that in your interpretation that the author is trying to reveal some like bigger meaning behind the story or bigger event that is happening that has kind of triggered these other sub events. I love interpreting. It's just really fun. But I guess a more tangible, not tangible, but a more realistic way to describe interpretation or interpreting information. Okay, so think about it this way. You maybe like someone, right? You like someone, okay? And you guys exchange numbers, you're texting, it's all good. Then you get a text message and you go, I'm not really sure what that means, or you feel like it has kind of a tone to it, and you're like, well, I don't really know how I'm supposed to respond to that. And so you take it to your friend, and your friend looks at the text message and they go, girl, or I don't know. And so you guys are sitting there trying to figure out what the actual meaning of the text message is. Well, you have the actual piece of literature, which is the physical text that was sent, right? But you're looking at that message and you're going, there's something deeper here. They're not really saying what they intend to say. They're not coming right out. There's something below that. And you are trying to figure out what that something below the actual text is. That's when you're interpreting. You can also think about when you interpret your dreams, right? Dreams are super bizarre. Sometimes you're like flying or like running or suddenly turn into a chicken. Like, you're not literally a chicken. It's supposed to represent something, and it's up to you to interpret why it is you turned into a chicken in your dream. I hope that makes sense. I think it makes sense. But if not, you can always, send me an email and say, Teacher Latoyia, that didn't make any sense. Can you explain more? And I'll go, absolutely, I can. All right. So things that I want to highlight. There is a big difference between annotation and interpretation. They are not the same thing. Not. When you annotate, you are literally reading a text, reading a story, reading a book, you're jotting down notes. It's about comprehension. It's about remembering what's going on so that later on down the line, you can make an interpretation without having to go back to a story and read. I don't like doing things twice. Like, do it right one time, get it over and done with. So annotation helps you to prevent going back to reread information to figure out what's happening. Interpretation is really the art of trying to figure out what that subtext means, what those symbols mean. So they are different. You cannot use those words interchangeably. It's not going to happen. Now, I said at the start of this video that this would be kind of an introduction to symbolism, to subtext, and to interpretation. And I think I've kind of just hit on the surface of what those things is. So I want to assign you something to do. I remember in class, some people asked me if we could read different texts or different stories, and you guys threw out a lot of options. And because we can't actually meet in person, doing some of those options that I had planned for the spring semester or later in the spring semester are kind of not possible at this point. But I found a story that I've done before with some other students, with older students. And I want us to kind of try to do that text together. And I picked this text because one, it's full of subtext, like, whoo, full of it. It has lots of symbolism. And once you start to kind of pick up on the small elements of symbolism, you just see like the story just kind of blossoms and opens up. So with this video for my 10th grade class, 10th grade only, please and thank you, I would like for you to read and annotate the story, Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates. The story is not super long, but it is a few pages. I want you to focus on the symbols in the text that you find, maybe things that come up over and over again, and what you believe those symbols are meant to represent. Okay? As a side note, the story is a little creepy. Yeah, it's a little creepy. But again, it is very interesting. And I think that if you're an avid reader or someone who has had other lessons surrounding symbolism and subtext, you'll be really into the story. And if you're not those things, just the creepiness of the story, I think will hook you. There are some comprehension questions that I will include for this particular assignment. So I'll make sure you have those. They'll likely be in a Word or PDF document that I'll either email to you or link to you. I'm not really sure which option I'm going to choose just yet, but I'll make sure that they are clearly labeled. So again, Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates is our 10th grade assignment because we're doing different readings for the grade level. So if you're a 10th grader, you can stop this video here. You have what you need. It's on the screen. You can do that. I'll make sure you have everything that you need to get that work completed. All right, so be safe out there. Now, if you are an 11th grade student and a 12th grade student, I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. If you are an 11th grade student or a 12th grade student, this part is for you. So we are going to be reading and annotating the story Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. Okay, this story is completely heartbreaking. It is very challenging to read, not understand, but to physically read. Because you guys are a little older, you likely have read the book Push or have heard about the book Push. The writing here, in terms of spelling and grammar, is very similar. The content, way different. All right. And you'll see why I say it's really challenging to read. But I wholeheartedly believe that you guys will be able to make it through this particular text. Again, as I said, you will have comprehension questions to answer. I want to make sure you guys understand the story before we even attempt to talk about symbolism and subtext, because if you don't know what's going on, doing that is going to be really hard and complicated, and you're not going to really enjoy the process of kind of discovery. So that is the assignment for the 11th and the 12th graders. You're going to be reading Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. I will make sure that the story is linked, the comprehension questions are linked or added as PDF documents so you can easily access them. I know that annotation will be difficult for this particular text because there will be a lot of words that are misspelled or things that don't really make sense. So I want you to really focus on the symbolism and the subtext here. And you guys have a bigger lift because you're older, and the story itself lends more to your maturity level. So I am so excited that we were able to kind of see each other, or you're able to see me and all my antics, and that we have some things on our agenda to do. I'm hoping that the next recording will be just about each of those stories for the different grade levels. I had to kind of combine it here just to make sure it was manageable for me. But once we get into the meat and potatoes of each of the stories, we're going to kind of fracture off a bit and kind of focus. So again, I hope you all are well. I hope you're all safe and being kind. That's really important. And really taking this time to kind of think about how you can best prepare yourself for once we are no longer in quarantine, because that time will happen. We will find a new normal. I know I'm having a little bit of challenge with it, but managing nonetheless. I am human. And I'm finding creative ways to kind of keep myself busy, but I'm so happy that we were able to meet this way. And I really look forward to finding some time to really delve deeply into these two different texts with you guys, or one different text if only the 11th and 12th graders are still here with me. All right, folks, I will see you all soon. Have a beautiful day, beautiful people.